There was one key area that we needed to hold. We talked about it yesterday. 107,223. So this was going to be an important barrier because if we lost this level, it was indicating that this is going to be a failure point and we were expected to continue to the downside. That's the bear case. The bear case is 100,000. That's a retest of these previous levels here, which acted as support once, support twice, and support 3 times. So we understand key psychological round number 100,000. That is the bear case. If we get a rejection here and we lose this level, 100,000 is going to be my next key target. The bull case now, we talked about this level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days ago. We'd said we wanted an RS flip at 107,800. So that's exactly what we've got. We've pushed through, we've pushed through, we've pushed through. We've got the rejection all the way at 114,000. That was met by a reaction from the bears, pushing price back to the 107,000, testing that as support. And that is an RS flip, and that's what's holding. So in the short term, in the next few days, 107,000 to 110,000 is probably going to be range bound. We need an indication, we need a catalyst to push Bitcoin to the upside, or if we get bad news, to the downside. So that's why Bitcoin's the leader, and that's why we need to look at Bitcoin first before we can get any kind of bias as far as direction's concerned going into the next coming days. So the next thing that we look at, because we're trying to paint a picture here, the next thing that we're looking at is the Bitcoin dominance. Now you can see this. What was this? This was the big capitulation that happened that pushed altcoins down, pushed altcoins down, pushed altcoins down. That was met by a recovery by altcoins. And then the reversal happened in Bitcoin. So that was pushed down. This could have been a support base. If this had held, come back down, but it didn't. That's strong. So we were rejected, and people started having more confidence in altcoins, and then the rotation began. So one thing we don't want is a push back up and then breaching this level to hold as support, because if that happens, that's going to show one thing: weakness in altcoins. So this is something that we're going to be monitoring. The key area, 60.77% on Bitcoin dominance. So we understand Bitcoin dominance. This needs to drop. We want to drop in this. Bam, 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 come back down, test 57.21. Everyone's going to be happy because that's going to be a rally in altcoins. Next thing we're going to look at is the S&P 500. Why do we even look at the S&P 500? Because this is the least risky asset as far as the indices are concerned within the stock market of the US. So this was an ascending wedge. We'd said one thing. This was concerning me. An ascending wedge is a bearish pattern when you're in a bullish move. So we expected a drop. And where are we coming back to? To test the previous high. So this is going to be a key indication. If we can actually break this previous high, that's a new all-time high for the S&P. If that happens and that holds as support, that's going to give confidence further down the risk curve. So ultimately, we'll jump into total 3 next. We got this big rejection. We got a double top, a rejection. This was the capitulation. This was the big buy up. That was the big buy up in altcoins. We've seen the reversal here in Bitcoin dominance. We've seen the reversal. Total 3. And most of your altcoins done exactly the same. So that's what happened after the biggest capitulation event in crypto history that wiped out the most leverage in crypto history. People that are here survived it. So 969 billion is the key support that we need to hold on total 3. We're going to have a quick look at Ethereum next, because Ethereum done one thing. Bitcoin dropped this key level. Ethereum held a bull flag. So it held its bull flag, it dropped down, but it recovered, come back into the bull flag, and it's still holding there. Key resistance is $4,000 now. Once we break above $4,000, we could test the top of this flag and then start breaking through. 4862. That's going to be the next big rejection point once we break through the 4,000. So remember, psychological round number, 4,000. That's going to be the barrier to overcome in the short term. Next thing we will look at is the strength of the dollar. And we measure this inside crypto and outside of crypto. So when we measure it inside of crypto, we look at the strength of USDT. You can see here, we're in a bull flag right now, and this is something that we don't want. We want to break down from this. Because when you've got weak USDT dominance, that's signaling people are spending their USDT, They're spending it on altcoins. That's increasing the market cap of altcoins, and it is pushing down the market cap of USDT. They're spending it on altcoins. That's the strength of the dollar within the crypto market. So we don't want to break to the upside on that. We want this to fail. We want this to be a double top, and then we want a rejection. First indication for a rejection for me is going to be a lower low, lower close candle. So tomorrow, if we get something like this, where the candle closes below this extreme low of this candle, previous one, then that's going to signal further downside, a potential move and a potential drop in USDT dominance. Sorry for the interruption. This is something I don't usually do, but before we jump into the dollar and before we jump into the rest of the macro, one thing that I will ask is, if you do feel like you do need to stay up to date with crypto, I'm here every single day. The one way that you can help me out and help my channel out is just subscribing to the channel. Just subscribe, hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. And it's one way that you can support me for free. So let's jump back into the analysis. And the next dollar-based asset that we're going to look at to give us an indication as far as where we are in the risk curve is concerned and what's likely to happen going into the next coming days and weeks is the US dollar index, the DXY or the Dixie. Now, what is the Dixie and why do we look at the Dixie and why do we even care about it? It is the dollar trading against a bag of currencies. Those currencies are the main one, which is the euro. You've got the Great British Pound, you've got the Japanese yen, you've got the Canadian dollar, and you've got another bag of currencies collectively trading against the dollar. Why does that matter? When you've got a weak dollar, you've got a strong economy. When you've got a strong dollar, you've got a weak economy. It works like that. So when these currencies, not cryptos, when these currencies are trading strong against the dollar, what you'll see is a weak Dixie. And what you'll see is stronger economy. So we want a big drop in the Dixie, and that's why it's important to look at the Dixie to find out outside of crypto how strong the dollar is and how far down the risk curve that we actually are and whether we're going into any kind of on risk rally inside crypto and outside crypto. So the next thing that we looked at the S&P 500 earlier. That was the lowest risk as far as the indices are concerned within the US. Next thing we're going to look at is the Russell 2000. Now, we've been waiting for one thing on the Russell 2000. This is the biggest indicator of on risk. Once you get a break at the previous all-time high on the Russell 2000, and that's exactly what we got, that indicates on risk. However, we're going to zoom into the 4-hour on this, and this is creating a pattern which concerns me. This is either a topping pattern or a bottoming pattern. What this is a diamond. So it's a diamond, and basically, you've got a high probability, if you break to the upside, high probability of breaking to the upside of volatility, high volatility, a big move. Exactly the same to the downside, unfortunately. And we've got our next support all the way down here at 2,306. If the Russell 2000 come back down and rejected back to this level, that would look bad. However, here's the bullish case. We've just had a big capitulation event inside crypto. We've just had a big capitulation event as far as the world is concerned, as far as the macro economy is concerned. Russell 2000 held up pretty well considering how risky this thing is. So there was the capitulation. There's the recovery coming back down. And we're holding a key area now. Ideally, we want to get back above here. In fact, we've got back above here. Come back, fill this gap, and then off, new highs. When we get new highs on the Russell 2000, that'll coincide with one thing, as indicating that we can go risk on and then into altcoins. You'll start seeing a breakout of the total three once you get a big breakout of the Russell 2000. So it is all relative and it does paint a collective picture. You can understand that. Look at Ethereum against Bitcoin. Why do we look at that? Because Ethereum is the second biggest asset as far as market cap's concerned within the whole of the crypto market. And you can see that Ethereum, after we had the capitulation, recovered against Bitcoin. So people are staying in risk. People are staying in Bitcoin. People are holding Ethereum still. So that's a good thing. Then the next thing we look at is the others chart. Now, this is high risk crypto. This is everything outside of the top 10. And what you want to see is this big buy up happened to the high risk cryptocurrencies, and we recovered at 0.11, and then we're currently trading at 0.113. So on the others, what do we want? We want a big breakout of this. Once we get a big breakout of this, that's showing momentum, and then we can start taking back these levels. So that's really high risk. When we get an alt season, that's what you're going to see. Right, okay, the last thing we're going to look at is the volatility index. Now, this is the volatility index of the S&P. What you see when you get these big spikes is fear. You get a big spike and there's fear. We got fear in the market. What happened? We got a big spike. We got fear in the market up here. What happened? That was a capitulation event. That was a capitulation event. That's when people are scared. So how scared were people? This was the biggest capitulation event as far as leverage was concerned in crypto history. How did it affect the volatility index of the S&P? Not as bad as here or the time before. So we're not as scared as what people think. Everybody is fearful in crypto. Everybody is saying we're not going to get an alt season. I ultimately don't know what's going to happen. We're a slave to the market. We can look at past analysis and look at what the probabilities are going forward. The probabilities are going forward is when you look at Bitcoin dominance and you zoom out and you zoom out, you can see one thing. This was 2017 alt season. That was 2021 alt season. We haven't had a 2025 alt season. We've not had an alt season yet. However, Bitcoin dominance is hovering all the way up here at 60% of the whole of the crypto market cap. And then you look at total free. Where's that? Hovering pretty much near its all-time highs. So this is indicating to me one thing. All you need is one big swing like this, and that breaks through, holds support, bam, bam, bam. Before that, we do need a catalyst as far as the news is concerned. We need the macro conditions outside of the markets to be aligned. So we're waiting for the US government shutdown to finish. We're waiting for decision on the Fed rate cut, which is a high probability that we're going to get rate cuts. And then guys, the one thing that I've been excited about, I'm now a coach in the crypto school, one of the biggest crypto schools in the world. Who is a part of this crypto school? Tyler Hill. You've got some big coaches here. You've got some big players here, and I'm honored to be a part of this, guys. So you've got Tyler Hill, you've got Connor Kenny, you've got loads of advanced traders in here, loads of advanced and experienced traders, not just YouTubers, but actual traders. So it's one of the biggest schools. It teaches you trading, it teaches you fundamentals, it teaches you everything from the basics all the way to advanced. And I'm proud to be a coach. So subscribe to my channel. On the bottom of my videos, you can click the link. It's $99 a month to sign up, and then you get access to all of these coaches. You can get one-to-one training. You can get lots of different types of information from a bunch of people, lots of people that have collectively got the same views, the same goals that you have. So make your path easier. If you wanted to join that, it's $99. Click the link in the description of this video, and I'll see you in there.